Hey everybody, thank you for clicking on the link to this video. Today we are talking Red Sox as we always do, and specifically we are talking Red Sox prospects according to SoxProspects.com. They have the best and most comprehensive resource out there for Red Sox prospects, and we're going to be running through their top 10 to see how they might fare heading into the 2026 season, who they are as players, and how they're going to impact the 2026 Boston Red Sox potentially on their major league roster. So if you guys like this type of content, stick around and let's jump right into it.
I think the window is getting bigger. It's actually a door, and we can actually accomplish this.
He strikes out the side. Oink, oink. Roman reigns supreme in Gotham. A signature moment.
Swinging a drive. He killed it. And it's out of here. It's gone. St. God does it. The Sox win it.
All right, guys, so as you click into the Sox prospect site, this is kind of what you're greeted by. They break down the top 30 prospects here, a little bit more detail, and then they have the top 60 prospects all the way down this list, but we are just focusing on the top 10 here. If you guys like this video, I can make more about like the top 20, 30 prospects if you really want to. It is worth noting that a lot of the players that are in the top 10 right now were like the 20th ranked prospect last year. And so there are interesting players further down the list. But right now, we're just going to talk about the top 10 because this is already going to be a pretty long video. So hopefully you guys like that type of content because here we go. Payton Tolle, number one prospect in the Red Sox system. I think that Sox Prospects does a really nice job of just kind of summarizing our hopes for Payton Tolle in the first few sentences here. So, a potential mid-rotation starter, but projection is fluid given the strides he has made since joining the organization. Ceiling of a number two starter, but even that may be light. And you look at what Payton Tolle kind of brings to the table here, and I think that that sums him up very well. He is a guy that, we're looking at next season and we're hoping he's going to be a mainstay in the rotation. But he also has some pretty serious concerns that could take him down. And like worst case scenario, he might just be like a lefty reliever, probably a high leverage lefty reliever. Don't get me wrong, but there is that possibility. I'll explain all of that kind of here in a second. So let's look at his 2026 season or 2025 season. It was obviously extremely impressive from a minor league perspective, and he was able to make his major league debut after being drafted in just 2024. So he was drafted in the middle of 24, and by the middle of 25, he was on a major league roster. Very impressive. Players don't do that very often. Definitely not pitchers within the Red Sox organization. So yes, he did come out of college, but he just wasn't the same type of player that he is now. And so as he shot through the minor league systems, he pitched 91 innings in the minors last year. He had a 3.04 ERA, and he had a whip of about 1, struck out 13.1 per 9, 2.3 walks per 9. These were all extremely impressive numbers, and it goes to show exactly why he was promoted to the major leagues. Once he did get to the majors, things didn't go as well. He did have that extremely impressive first start, and I think that all of us were just kind of like drooling at the possibility of what Payton Tolle could do the rest of the season. Didn't quite live up to that hype of that 5.1 innings of 8 strikeouts and only giving up 3 hits. Didn't quite live up to that, but he still had, a relatively solid first taste in the major leagues. And I think it's a little bit better than, what the stats show, because you look at a 6.06 ERA, a 16.1 innings pitched. That's not a big sample size, and that ERA doesn't scream like, oh, this was a decent sample. But you look at the numbers under the hood, and I think they get a little bit more impressive. So let's go to his Savant page here. And this kind of tells you, I think, a better picture of just who Payton Tolle was in 2025 and what he kind of brought to the table. So looking at his metrics here, right in the middle, his expected ERA was 4.58. And I know that that doesn't sound great, but you look at what Payton Tolle did this last season, and a lot of people naturally compare him to Connelly Early, who had a much more impressive sample as he did get promoted to the major leagues. But you had Payton Tolle and say he came up and he did have that 4.58 ERA instead of a 6.06, I think you have a ton more people that are like, okay, well, Payton Tolle is still going to be really, really good, as opposed to a 6.06 ERA, which, it just doesn't sound good when you look at it, right? It doesn't feel good. Whereas like a 4.58, it's like, yeah, that's a fine rookie season. But it's not really a rookie season, right? I mean, we're talking 2 earned runs here make a difference between a 4.5 and a 6 ERA when the sample size is this small. And so don't look at the ERA, don't care about that. Just look at what we're seeing kind of in the middle of the page here first. And I think this gives a much better picture. The biggest thing that stands out here, I think, to everybody is just the 99th percentile extension. So this is what the Red Sox were targeting when they drafted Payton Tolle, because when he was drafted, he was throwing like 90 to 92 miles an hour, which is just not a guy that is like worth a second round pick. Like he was picked 50th overall in the 2024 draft, and he was throwing 90, 92. Like that just doesn't make any sense, right? Well, the Red Sox reached for him a little bit, and they did that intentionally because they're looking at this guy. And yeah, you see 92 miles an hour as a fastball, but A, he was dominating hitters. And why was he dominating hitters? It's because of this extension. This is not something you can improve as much as you can some other traits when it comes to pitchers. Like, yes, how they deliver the baseball, I should say you can get more extension on it, but to already have somebody who naturally has elite extension and you don't have to teach that at all, you can focus on other things like fastball velocity, right? And so when he came into the organization right away, by spring training, he was already throwing like 94, 95 miles an hour. And so before we even got into the season, he was throwing 3, 4 miles an hour faster than he was in his college days, which was like 6, 7 months earlier. And then you go through the rest of the season, it just kept getting better and better and better. And by the end of the season, he was peaking at like 100 miles an hour. So just think of that. In 1 year, the Red Sox developed this pitcher to go from 92 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour. And I think that this fact is very important because you look at him heading into the 2026 season, and how fast is he going to be throwing the baseball next year? Because if this is his average fastball after he threw a full season of workload, and you look at the workload that he has had over the years. Like he threw in the 2023 season, he threw 85 innings, and then the next season he threw 81 innings. This last year, he threw 91 innings in the minor leagues, and then another 16 innings in the major leagues. And then I think he did pitch in the postseason, like an inning or two. But he basically threw more innings than he's ever had this last season. And still by the end of the season, after probably being really tired from that workload, was still throwing faster than he ever had. So what is he going to be throwing as we head into the 2026 season? I would not be shocked if his average fastball heading into spring training was like 97.5, 98 miles an hour. And if you get that average fastball up an extra couple of ticks, it changes Payton Tolle from being, he's a very good prospect to now he is a very good major league pitcher really quickly, because it's just not something that people can consistently catch up to is 98 miles an hour. And if that's his average fastball, that probably means he's regularly throwing in the hundreds in the major leagues. And I think that's very possible as we head into next year because he already gained 8 miles an hour on his fastball in 1 year. He's still developing. He's 23 years old. Like there's still so much time for Payton Tolle. Now, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate with some of that because I said a lot of exciting things with this fastball. His fastball is extremely exciting, but that's also maybe a little bit of a detriment because for those of you that were watching Payton Tolle in 2025, he threw his fastball a lot. He threw it 64% of the time at the major leagues. And if you know the Red Sox, they do not throw four-seam fastballs very much. They just don't. They don't like the pitch. They've eliminated it from several pitchers' repertoires in the past. And this current front office has done that. So to have a four-seam fastball pitcher and he's throwing this much, A, it better be a good four-seam fastball to begin with. But B, you better have some secondaries that can back it up. And that's where Payton Tolle kind of got into trouble, is because he is in some ways more of a one-trick pony right this second. He's got that four-seam fastball that's super good, but that cutter, slider, change, curve, he needs to elevate the usage a little bit, and he has to be able to locate better because his walks per nine is really what kind of hurt him as he went up into the major leagues. Because you look this last season in minor leagues, 13.1 strikeouts, 2.3 walks per nine. Like we talked about those. But look at the majors. Like, yes, his strikeouts per nine went down a little bit. You are going to see that as pitchers make it to the major leagues. So that's not concerning. That's still a very good number. It's 10.5 strikeouts per nine. I will take that all day. But 4.4 walks, that is why some of these other numbers went up. That's why that whip went up to 1.6 almost. That's why the hits got worse. It's because he was having to just throw that fastball all the time because nobody was getting out on his secondary pitches. He wasn't able to locate it properly. So he's having to throw old reliable. And I mean, yeah, it's got good fastball velo, but if he's throwing a 96-mile-an-hour fastball and that's all you got, like people are going to time that up at some point or another. You have to be able to get something else to get people off balance. And so even if he gets one more pitch to be above average a little bit, like say he can get that slider and it can be a 15%, 20% usage pitch, and then he's got some other pitches that he throws from time to time. It keeps people off balance, and it's like it doesn't even need to be that great of a pitch, but it needs to be able to be located. Like it doesn't need that much spin on it. It just needs to be a different angle, a different look than people are looking for when they see a four-seam fastball. Because you can just overpower him with a four-seam fastball all day, but like it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, by the second at bat, you've seen it, and that's where you get the worries that he could be like a reliever. Is if he can't get extra pitches added into his repertoire that are consistent, it can be a problem. And so, but if he can, then you're going to see this ground ball percentage go up a lot more because people aren't going to be sitting on a fastball that's easier to elevate. These walk percentage should go up. The chase percentage will go up more just because people are they're not chasing a fastball out of the zone because they can see it. It's a flat pitch, but they are going to chase a little bit more a good slider. So you look at Payton Tolle, and there's a good reason he's the number one prospect. Like he's got a little bit more variable than I think people want to admit, in my opinion. I think he like worst case scenario, he's like a really good closer or like a super high leverage reliever where it's just like this is your second best reliever on the staff. That's not what the Red Sox want. And I think like let's look at Fangraphs projections really quick of him. They have him at 62, 69 innings for next season at the major league level and an ERA of around 4-ish. I think if that's an ERA around 4-ish and he's a starting pitcher and he throws 70 innings as a starting pitcher next season and they're all starting pitcher innings and he gets 15 starts at the major league level, that's fine. Like I'm okay with him getting 15-ish starts, 14, 15 starts and throwing 70 innings. And then splitting some time at AAA still because he's so young. I mean, it's just gonna be a second full season. Like, give the guy a break a little bit here. And he's not gonna go out there and we talked about his arm. Like he's not gonna go out there and throw 180 innings as a starting pitcher next season, right? Like the most innings he's ever thrown in a season was last year, and it was like 105. So I mean, if we get 140 out of him between the minors and majors, and then that can build him up hopefully into a successful 2027 season where he can maybe get to that point where he qualifies for like the ERA titles and like some statistics. 162 is what we're looking for. Like that would be great, but yeah, you just never know. Also, something else that I don't think I've mentioned yet is the fastball velocity while going up is a good thing. It's a great thing, and if he's throwing 98 in spring training, we're all going to be excited about it. He hasn't had a major surgery yet. And so if he's throwing 8-9 miles an hour fastball faster than he did like a year and a half earlier, it worries me for elbow surgeries, right? I would think Payton Tolle is a higher candidate potentially for his arm exploding and needing Tommy John surgery or something, tearing in there. Exploding's a little dramatic, but it would not shock me that much next season if Payton Tolle had to have a surgery on his arm and he was out for a year and a half. Just because pitchers like this, it kind of happens to sometimes. So fingers crossed. I mean, he's got all of the potential. I mean, if he could throw, like I said, 120, 140 innings. He could spend the whole season in the major leagues next year and, give you 25 really good starts before you have to maybe shut him down or lower his inning usage into a reliever type role at the end of the year, just so his arm doesn't explode. But I think he's got all the potential in the world. This extension is exactly what they're looking for. The Red Sox love this trait, and we'll talk about it more in this video. But Payton Tolle is exciting. He's got the ability to be a top flight starting pitcher, and I think that we're going to see a nice step in the right direction 2026 as long as his arm doesn't explode. Okay, so next up on this list is Franklin Arias as the number 2 prospect. And I like Franklin Arias a lot, but I've also got some legitimate concerns about Franklin Arias, and I'll kind of explain them right now. But he is potentially an everyday shortstop, according to Sox prospects, with the ceiling of a quality regular who provides value with his glove and contact ability. Hit tool is a standout tool, but lack of power and speed limits the upside. Defense profile limits him to a solid floor. I think that this right here is kind of the thing that concerns me the most, right? Because you look at Franklin Arias, and if I remember correctly, I think he almost won minor league defensive player of the year, like in all of the minor leagues. I think he came in second, according to MLB.com this last season. So when we talk about his defense, it's more than good. Like it's extremely good. And we like top tier defensive player, potentially competing for gold gloves regularly as he makes his way into the major leagues. But that's kind of his thing, and that's the problem that I have with Franklin Arias. Like, when we're talking top prospects, I don't want to hear that their best attribute is defense, you know? It just doesn't do it for me, and I say this at the same time while constantly complaining about how bad the Red Sox are defensively, and I'll admit to that, but at the same time, I would rather have an average defensive shortstop who can hit you 25 or 30 home runs a year than to have a great defensive shortstop who might struggle to get you into the teens. And I think that that's kind of what Franklin Arias is right now. Let's look at his stats from this last season, talk about him. But overall, he batted 278, 335 with a 338 or 388 slugging percentage, good for 723 OPS. He hit 8 home runs, stole 12 bases, 38 walks to 53 strikeouts. So when they talk about his contact ability, I think it is really great. He headed into this season and he just totally was overpowering players at single A. He didn't belong in single A, right? And then he got promoted up to high A, and that's where some of the struggles sort of started. But they continued to promote him, and I think a big reason for this is you look at this walk to strikeout ratio, and this is something that I'm very high on personally as like one of the biggest indicators in the minor leagues as to if a player is ready to promote or if they're going to be successful at the next level is that walk to strikeout ratio. I don't always necessarily care if the walk if like it's higher or lower, like maybe they strike out a lot and they walk a lot, like that's still good for me for the most part. Um, but like he walks a decent clip and he doesn't strike out a whole lot. Like it's pretty even still. And so I understand kind of why they promoted him up to double A. And he didn't do super well at double A, but it was a pretty small sample size. He hit a couple homers. And something else to note is in Greenville, it's kind of difficult to hit home runs. So you look at this 87 games and he hit 6 home runs. And he got up to double A, and in 10 games he hit 2 home runs. So you kind of extrapolate that out. And if he was to play 80 games in Portland, maybe he would have hit in the teens for home runs. And so if we're looking at that type of power potential from him, and he can be the type of guy that can develop into like a 20 home run bat, you know, I get excited about Franklin Arias. And then it's like, okay, yeah, let's get this guy to the major leagues quickly. Maybe we'll even see him like at the end of 2026 if everything goes amazing for him. But as of right now, I look at him and I'll tell you who I see. I see Jose Iglesias as a guy who is just, you know, a very quality hitter, excellent defense out there, but just not the type of guy that's going to give you that OPS, right? He's not the type of guy that's going to hit you 20 home runs a year. He's not the type of guy that's going to be able to anchor a lineup consistently. Could he have seasons like this where, you know, he bats 337, 300, 300? Like, yeah, I totally can see it. But at the same time, I just don't know if that's the type of guy that you want being a starter every day. Because even in his like good seasons, like this was the best season of his career, and he put up 3 WAR, which is great. But like these are still solid seasons here, where he batted 292. He put up 1.2 WAR. That's just not doing it for you as a starter, right? Like another like pretty decent season over here for the Red Sox. early in his career, 2.4 WAR, and this was with good defense, and he batted 303 for the Red Sox and Tigers before they traded him. Like, if this is what Franklin Arias ends up becoming, it wouldn't surprise me. And this is just not a top prospect for me. So I think that the Red Sox should look at him as potentially trade candidate. And I think if a team values Franklin Arias as the type of prospect who is a top 25 prospect in baseball, which there are a lot of rankings out there that have him in the top 25 prospects, they should trade him because his floor, while being high, it doesn't just equate to that ceiling being relatively low for me right now. There are some encouraging signs to see with him, but I just think that the Red Sox should capitalize right now and maybe trade him, even with them having not a ton of prospects in their top 10 that are position players, which is very true right now. But he's just one of those guys where if you can trade him and then maybe get other assets back that can help the team now, I think you do it. Okay, next up on our list, we've got Connelly Early as the number 3 prospect. And I think as we kind of go further down this list, it's fair to say that Payton Tolle, Franklin Arias, and Connelly Early all probably could be pretty interchanged on this list as the number 1, 2, or 3 prospects. There's a fair argument to be made that Connelly Early is the best pitching prospect on the team. And Franklin Arias, he could drop up or go down depending on your kind of opinions right now. Connelly Early, I think that I would probably put him at number 2 and have Franklin Arias at number 3. But I think that they have him ranked in this order just because Connelly Early was so far down this list with such an uncertain peak potential heading into the 2025 season. And he really just broke through much more than people were expecting. Like the Payton Tolle was expected kind of heading into spring training. We saw that fastball velocity go up a lot. Connelly Early was not expected. So let's look at what they have to say about him. Sox prospects, they're still kind of mixed on him. I know I've heard them talk about this, but they have him as a potential 4th, 5th starter, ceiling of a quality 3rd starter, durable, has solid pitchability with wide range arsenal. Changeup is a legit MLB quality out pitch. Combines that with 4 other pitches that he can throw for strikes and projects as a fringe average to above average. Increased fastball velocity, raise a ceiling of that pitch, and gives him a solid component to his changeup. Still needs to show he can hold velocity gains deep into starts and continue to develop his breaking balls, his sliders, curveball, sweeper, blah, 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 blah. Higher floor, lower ceiling profile. I think that is a pretty good way of putting it. And I think that Connelly Early, differently than Payton Tolle, is pretty guaranteed to be a starting pitcher at some point. Whether he is that 4th or 5th starter, a 3rd starter, or even more than a 3rd starter, I think he's going to be a major league starting pitcher. And the reason is because he just has those other pitches. So we made a big point in the first video here talking about the usage of Payton Tolle and how he was 64% four seam. Look at this usage from Connelly Early here. I mean, this is gorgeous. This is awesome. And like we were reading in the summary, he can throw all these pitches for strikes. And you know what? He did. He did at the major league level. He threw almost all these pitches for strikes. It was a very impressive showing from Connelly Early last year. And it is not only at face value and what you're seeing with your eyes impressive, but also when you look at the metrics, it is all red here. It's all red. His expected ERA of 2.35 lines up exactly with his ERA of 2.33. 19.1 innings. I know that's no sample size. Again, and Payton Tolle had a similar sample size, and I was like, don't worry about it. Well, I buy into this a little bit more. And it's just because of this usage and the walk rate and the strikeout rate. And I just am obsessed with those type of metrics. And you look at just what he did this last year, and it's so impressive. And it kind of makes you wonder as you look into some of his previous seasons here, why people weren't more high on Connelly Early, right? Because look at his numbers from these previous 2 seasons here. And again, your eyes are immediately going to be drawn right here to ERA, and you're like, oh, well, he had a 4 ERA and then dropped it to 2.6. Like, it's a massive difference, right? Well, like, look under the hood. I mean, it's not that different between 2024 and 2025, where the guy goes from, a teens prospect, one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. he's not that different of a pitcher year over year. I mean, we're talking whip of 1.18 and then a whip of 1.10. That's not that big of a change year over year from 24 to 25. Hits per nine, 7.3 to 6.4. I'll give you that one. An extra hit's a pretty big deal. But you look at home runs, look at walks, 3.4, 3.6. It actually went up year over year. But this is respectable. I mean, if he can keep those walks a little bit lower like he did at the major league level, I'd love. But like these are similar. And then strikeouts per nine again, like it's the same. He's the same type of pitcher. And the net results were just different. That's all it was. Like 2.6 ERA, 4.0 ERA essentially. Like from the same type of numbers. And you look at the majors when you go down, very similar all the way down. 7.9. His hits actually went up a little bit. His walks was the biggest thing that dropped, and strikeouts went up. And he didn't give up a home run in the major leagues in 4 starts. That's also a thing. It is a small sample size, but I think you're looking at like Connelly Early, and this is almost right here, the 2024-2025 seasons. This feels like the range for Connelly Early heading into the 2026 season. And this feels extremely aggressive, even coming out of my mouth. But I just think this is the type of pitcher he is. I mean, he's shown you for 2 full seasons as the type of pitcher he is. Then he comes up to the major leagues and he does even better. And so I think as he regresses back to the mean, because this is just not sustainable. I fear it's just not sustainable. But like, if he were to come up and put you a 3.25 ERA next season, I think you would have a large portion of the fan base would be like, well, yeah, of course he did. Look at what he did last season. And it's hard for me not to look at this and kind of buy into it, because even when you like go down to these numbers, we didn't do this with Payton Tolle, but like this breaks it down where his pitches are being located, and it kind of is what you want to see. Like his 4-seam fastballs in the zone, his curveballs, and these pitches, there's like nothing. There's no pitch amount here. So you can see like individual pitches, but like his curveball, it's where it needs to be. His changeup is down. He didn't throw a single changeup above like the belt really at all this year. Not a single one. It's down below, kind of all over the place a little bit, but like the heat right here. Sinker in the zone, kind of similar to 4-seam. 4-seam, he elevates it like he's supposed to. Sinker, lower in the zone where it kind of needs to be. Slider. Look at that. Look how perfect that slider spot is right here. Sweeper, exactly where it needs to be, on the edge of the zone. And so you look at his control usage, you look at the red that I'm seeing here, you look at his ability to locate all of the pitches, and you look at the fastball velocity. It's 93.7 miles an hour. The Red Sox are good at increasing fastball velocities with pitchers. Like that's just kind of what they do. And he was throwing and up to 97 miles an hour last year. I think that if he can get this up, and say his average fastball ticks up even a mile per hour, and we're talking he's got an average fastball next year, combine that with being able to locate all these pitches, and I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable to say this guy's a number 3 starting pitching. You look at what Fangraphs has projected for him into next season. He's got the same type of innings that Payton Tolle was, in that 60-ish range, with a lower ERA, though. I mean, they're higher on him than they are with Payton Tolle. And Payton Tolle's the number 1 prospect, and Connelly Early's number 3. But, like, again, you can kind of see why. I mean, yes, Payton Tolle has that overpowering fastball. And yes, his peak performance is going to be potentially better than Connelly Early if he can get a couple more average pitches. But Early already has a bunch of average pitches, average to above average, and then he can locate them. And so, even if you don't have that dominant over the power, like, yes, I'm going to throw my 4-seam fastball and strike you out to end this inning, it's like, well, no, I have 4 pitches that I could throw to you. Guess which one I'm going to throw, and it's going to be in the strike zone, or you're going to swing over the top of it, because that's just what I do. I think I probably am higher on Connelly Early than I am on Payton Tolle, personally. They're both really good, but it's hard not to get excited about this usage map. And we'll see what happens next year. I think there's a possibility him and Payton Tolle are going to be battling for that 5th starter spot, but you could be at the end of the year, and could Connelly Early put up an all-star first half of the season, it wouldn't be that shocking. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't to me. Because I just think this is his range right here. I mean, I think in the worst type of situation, he's probably gonna be sitting around a 4 ERA, 4.5. I think that's worst case scenario, and I really do think he's gonna be sitting in the threes by the end of the season, which that's just kind of what we need. We need guys at the back end of the rotation. If he can throw up a 3.5, 3.8 ERA, something in that range, I'll take that every day. I'll sign up for that right this second from Connelly Early, and he can maybe even do more. So next up is right-handed pitcher Kyson Witherspoon. So we're starting to enter the territory of some of these guys that we have like no sample size at the major league level. I talked about Kyson Witherspoon in previous videos way back when, but he was our first round pick last season, and he was one of those guys that the Red Sox weren't expecting to be in the spot that he was. I want to say the Red Sox drafted like, what was it, 13th overall, something like 15th overall. He was expected to be a top 10 pick. And so for him to drop down to the 15th overall, the Red Sox just couldn't pass it up. He is not the type of pitcher the Red Sox normally kind of go after. If you're looking at the prospect list to begin with, lefty, 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 Jake Bennett, we'll talk about in a second. These are the big lefty arms. Garrett Crochet is a lefty. The guy Oviedo they just acquired, big lefties. They like big lefties. That's not Kyson Witherspoon. He's kind of like a 6'2", is not small, but it's kind of like average size for a starting pitcher. But the guy throws 99 miles an hour. I mean, he's throwing fast. He's already thrown what Connelly Early was at a younger age. Red Sox need some right-handed pitching. So the Red Sox prospect summary of him is intriguing right-hander with big velocity and multiple potential above average secondaries, has mid-rotation upside if he continues his trajectory he's on, made considerable strides with this command and control as a junior, and continued to refine some of his secondaries. So this is what he did when he was pitching. Where was he at? Oklahoma. So this last season, 2.65 ERA, 16 starts, 95 innings. He didn't allow a ton of hits, 1.01 whip. That's really nice. Ks per nine of 11.75, and then lowered those walks a lot. This is what got him to be a first round pick, because these walks were a little bit scary, but this is a nice sample size here. 23 walks over 95 innings. I mean, if we're sitting at the 2.2 range for walks, that's like elite. I mean, we're talking elite levels. Like, we'll go back to Connelly Early's Savant page here. I mean, that's what he's been doing, like 5.1% walk rate. That's basically what Connelly Early did at the major league level. 1.9. That's what I was looking for. 1.9 walks per nine. So very similar rate at the collegiate level at Oklahoma. Kyson Witherspoon is what Connelly Early did at the major league level. So if that's the type of command that we're going to see out of him, maybe he's the type of guy that can develop into kind of like a Connelly Early a pitcher who throws faster. And I think that like the range that they have for him here. So we'll go back to this front page. So this is the grade that Sox prospects put for him. This is essentially the 2 to 8 scale that the Major League Baseball kind of uses to rank prospects, and this is the range they potentially could be. So they have them 3 to 7, which means like a 7 is like a perennial all-star. And right now they have him at a 5 because they just don't know. They don't know enough information about him right now. But I think that there's a reasonable case to be made that you look at Kyson Witherspoon, and he could be this year's Payton Tolle, right? Because he's already got a lot of the stuff that the Red Sox tried to develop with Tolle. Like, if he's throwing 99 miles an hour now, you don't even have to work on that. Just keep the command in shape and let this guy go. Like, that's all it is. Like, if he's got the command and he's got some of these pitches, like, why couldn't this guy be at the major leagues to start or to end the season? It's very plausible. It would not surprise me that much. This guy could be a top of the rotation starter. I know they list his like peak as a mid rotation, but I think he could be better than that. And there's not a lot to say on him outside of that, but he's exciting for a reason. He's a number 4 prospect for a reason. I think on a lot of teams' lists, they would love to have this guy, and the Red Sox got lucky last year with him. So I'm expecting big things from him this next year, and I think he's going to show that. So next up at number 5, we've got Juan Valera, and I think that Juan Valera didn't have the best season this last year compared to what we were hoping for from him in the 2024 season, because when he came into 2024, he really burst on the scene. Because in 2023, he was really just like a not competitive prospect. He wasn't even really a starter. I mean, really, he wasn't a starter. Like that's a better way of putting it. So he had 10.2 strikeouts per nine, 2023, 6.6 walks per nine. That's just not going to do it. Not going to do it. But then he comes in the 2024 season and he actually gets into rookie ball and he's just very dominant, under a 2 ERA, 1.79, 8.9 strikeouts per nine, 3.1 walks. Those are solid enough numbers, but the whip is just like he just wasn't giving up hits, right? 40 innings and only gave up 3.8 hits. Like it's hard to judge when they're in these rookie ball leagues because it's so difficult. Like he was one of the younger players that was on there, but can't really say much about it. But when he got to single A, I mean, you can get a little bit more excited when you get up to single A because you're facing like actual major league potential talent. You're outside of rookie ball. Like there's players on this roster that are going to make the major leagues at some point or another. It's less likely in rookie ball. There's a lot of fodder that's in rookie ball sometimes, but 23 innings in 2024, 9 hits allowed, 28 strikeouts. Did walk too many players, but like still kept the whip at a reasonable amount. And then heading into 2025, he just kind of, he was bouncing around with injury a little bit. Still kept those nice strikeout numbers. He did lower those walks a lot, but he exchanged it for a significantly higher hit rate, which I do think that I take because that just means that he had better control and he was throwing it in the zone more. And yes, people were hitting the ball, but that also means that you can work on those things heading into next year. So the scouting report for Sox prospects has the early makings of a high potential and starting pitching prospects, a lot of development remaining, and a high variance profile, but is already one of the 2 highest ceiling arms in the Red Sox system. Stuff looks dramatically improved heading into 2025, has the build you're looking for along with premium velocity, even though he'll still only be 18 when the regular season starts. So this is the part that gets exciting. Like he's throwing 100 miles an hour, and I spent 13 minutes going to town on Payton Tolle about his 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And I'm almost overlooking the fact that this guy's 19 and throwing 100 miles an hour, but you got to be able to control this stuff. And so that's why I say that I'm more excited about the fact that he walked significantly fewer batters than the fact that he gave up significantly more hits last season, which resulted in more runs, and he gave up home runs. And it doesn't really matter to me because if this walk rate and that strikeout rate can say where it's at, the secondary stuff will catch up. And that's where you get to the place where it's like, next season he's probably going to be in high A again to start the year because he only pitched in 38 innings there last year. So he's just not ready to be in double A. You stick him in high A, if he gets good 10 starts in him and he's performing well at high A and he can get the numbers back down, to the 2 or 3 ERA range, and lower those hits and keeps the walks down. I mean, you're looking at a pitcher where it's like, okay, now you get into double A, and if he's pitching well and he's throwing 100 miles an hour, that ends up being a top 10 pitching prospect in the sport. Like that's kind of just where it ends up. Like he could be a top 50 prospect by the end of next season. If he's in double A and he's throwing 100 miles an hour and he's not walking anybody. Like that's just kind of how it ends up. But he does have a lot to prove this next year, and hopefully he can kind of reach that as we're heading into the 2026 season. Mixed variable type guy, like they said, there's just so much room for this guy to grow. But worst case scenario, if you're throwing 100 miles an hour, you're gonna be in the big leagues probably at some point, even if you have not great command. Whether it's a relief role or not, remains to be seen. But Juan Valera is a good pitching prospect, and he could be a great one by the end of next season. All right, now we are at number 6 on our list, and we've got Jake Bennett, and I think he's probably the second or third most interesting guy on this list outside of the top 2 people. And because we traded like one of our better pitching prospects for him, and it's just a trade you just don't see very often. So Jake Bennett, before we get into it, was traded for Luis Perales. And for a long time, Luis Perales was essentially our default top pitching prospect. and for good reason. He's got amazing stuff. Like, look at his minor league career as a whole: 3.31 ERA, 12.6 strikeouts per nine. That's why he's your top pitching prospect. But on the flip side, 4.7 walks per nine is not very good. And so you kind of see this 1.3 whip, and yeah, the results were there because he strikes out a lot of batters. But again, this whip is just, you're not consistently going to be successful when your whip starts kind of creeping up into the 1.3s, 1.4s. Like, it's harder to do that when you're allowing free passes and people get on base, and then people hit home runs, and it's a spiral effect. And I think you see that with the fact that the Red Sox traded Luis Perales to the Nationals for Jake Bennett. And like, look what he did in the Arizona Fall League here. And these numbers are gross in a couple different ways. 11.1 innings, it's a nothing sample size, but it's the most recent thing we have to go on. And he had a 10 ERA. From what I understand, the infield defense was horrible behind him. So like, take some of this with a grain of salt, because there are, from what I guess, there's a lot of hits in here that shouldn't have been hits, and that inflates the ERA, right? What doesn't inflate the ERA from bad defense, though, is the fact that he had 11 walks in 11 innings. And then you look at like the 2025 season and 3 walks and 2.1 innings. Like, that's not like, it's nothing sample size, but like, yes, he struck out 15.1 batters per nine, but he walked 8.7 batters per nine. And I think that this is just the concern the Red Sox had with Luis Perales, and so they sent him away. Like you just can't give up this many walks, and this is not a real number. There's no way he's going to do this next season. But if his walks per nine gets back up into this 5 range where it's been in the past, concerns sets in. And I think the Red Sox had legit concerns about it, and they would rather have the luxury of something stable and secure, and potentially a guy that they can develop further and work with that instead. And Jake Bennett, man, if the Red Sox don't have a type, I don't know what they do. I mean, look at these guys. Garrett Crochet, 6'6", 240 pounds. Jake Bennett, 6'6", 234 pounds. Payton Tolle, they're both left-handed pitchers, by the way. Guess what? Payton Tolle, 6'6", 250 pounds. Another lefty. That's weird. Connelly Early, 6'3", 200 pounds. I think he weighs more than that, but another big lefty. Like, it's just like, it's so typical of the Red Sox to just go after the same type of pitcher that they have. And it's like, what happens if you look at like the end of next season? Like, you could have Jake Bennett, Connelly Early, Payton Tolle, Garrett Crochet, Oviedo, who they just acquired. Johan Oviedo. Oh, he's right-handed, but he's 6'6". So like, every single one of these guys is just going to be a monster on the mound, and they're all lefties except for Oviedo, who's just sitting there by himself, and maybe Bayo if he hasn't been traded, but he's right-handed. But he's not part of the current regime's signing or extension. But it's just so funny to me. Anyway, that was a little sidebar. But Jake Bennett, 6'6", lefty. They have something they can work with here. Because again, if they can just work and try to increase some of that extension, like they've been able to do with Payton Tolle, if they can get that fastball a couple ticks higher, you look at what he did this last season, these numbers are already pretty impressive. And I talk about walks and strikeouts per nine, so he didn't give up a ton of hits. I think these numbers are definitely, he overperformed. Like a 2.27 ERA, that's very impressive. And I think that those are the numbers that like fans will look at and be like, oh, okay, you kind of understand the Luis Perales trade, even if Perales was a high prospect and Jake Bennett wasn't a top prospect as much. But on the flip side, it's like, well, this 7.6 K per nine, like in the minors for his 2 years, 8.9 strikeouts per nine. So it wasn't great this last year. It was significantly better in 2023. And I think the Red Sox maybe view this and they're like, what if we can get like closer to these numbers right here, where he had 1.9 walks per nine, because he already has great control. Like you see that in the minor leagues. And then we can get those strikeouts back up, 10 strikeouts per nine. And then like you're cooking with gas then. I mean, if these are the numbers that you have, like he must have had some bad defense or just people who weren't backing him up. behind him because it's crazy that he had a 4.3 ERA with these numbers, and he wasn't giving up that many hits either. Like this whip is relatively respectable. Um, like I look at these two numbers right here and I see the makings of potentially a top flight starting pitcher. And I think that you look at this and so much is made about Jake Bennett and the fact that his floor is really high. Um, they call him a back end start, potential back end starter, improved the 2025 season as he got farther away from his Tommy John surgery, high floor prospect. So they're like, oh yeah, he could be a back end starting pitcher. I mean, I look at this guy and I see the possibility of a mid rotation starter pretty easily. Especially if he's just got control of those fastball and like if he tops out at 96 right now, what if he's topping out at 98, 99 like a Payton Tolle next season? I mean, he's older than some of the guys that we've been talking about. It would be an interesting type breakout if he came in at 26, 27 years old and was just like one of the better pitchers in the league after kind of starting off so late. Because a lot of the times, I mean, we're seeing guys like Paul Skeens who's 22 and dominating the league, right? We're so used to that now. But there's still guys like Jake Bennett who can kind of come out of nowhere and find the right pitching lab that can unlock some things. And that is just so much about what the Red Sox are hoping to do with Jake Bennett. And I think it's hard to ignore the possibility that it could happen when you have guys like Connelly Early and Payton Tolle that they've been able to do that with. And we're talking about them like they're top prospects. And like if Jake Bennett, even if he doesn't see much time at the major leagues next season, because you know he reached Double A last year, so he's probably going to start in Double A next season, just because the Red Sox have so much pitching depth that even if they wanted to put him at Triple A, they couldn't. So he's going to be a Double A for a decent amount of time next season. But if he comes up and puts these numbers, like he's a guy that, it wouldn't shock you if he was on the major league roster by the end of the next season, depending on injury. I hope he's not on the major league roster by the end of next season, kind of almost, because that means that the Red Sox pitching is so good that they don't need him. But yeah, I mean, he's an exciting kind of guy, and I think that the biggest thing to look at with him is, can he maintain his command heading into 2026, and does his fastball velocity go up? Because if his average fastball goes up a mile or two and he's still not walking a lot of guys, that's where you see the potential for Jake Bennett being a really good prospect. All right, guys. So next up on our list, we've got Justin Gonzales at number 7, and he is far and away the most exciting hitting prospect currently in the Red Sox organization. It's not even close, and let me explain why. He is just a big boy type architect. They have him listed at 6'4", 210 pounds at 19 years old. He has to be bigger than this. I mean, you watch videos on Justin Gonzales. I've got a couple videos of him on my channel hitting home runs. Take a look at them. He is gotta be bigger than 6'4". I mean, we're talking, 6'6", 6'7" at this point. I think he's just gotten bigger. He is such an interesting hitting prospect because his power is just so good. Plus to better raw power, generates easy power is what they have. Ball really jumps off his bat. I mean, this is the early makings of a prospect that you look at, and if all goes well, he's like a 35 to 40 home run power bat in the big leagues. Now, we're very far away from that, and I want to make that super clear. And when you look at his stats here, you're going to be like, this guy's going to hit 40 home runs, like he couldn't even hit 5 home runs last season. I get that, but hear me out here for a second before you judge too much on that. So in 2024, he had a really nice season, 320 batting average. He played just rookie ball DSL, but 908 OPS, 5 home runs, 4 triples, 11 doubles in 48 games. When you have younger players like this, you're not often going to see guys in rookie ball hitting like 10, 15 home runs in this amount of sample size. They're still learning how to lift the ball. There's not a ton of players that come along and just hit home runs like they do. As we head into the 2025 season, so he started in rookie ball for like a game, but he spent most of the year in single A. As I mentioned before, he only hit 4 home runs at single A, but he batted 298 with a 381 on base percentage, 423 slugging, 804 OPS. These are really good numbers. And let me explain a little bit more why I think that these are so good. This on base percentage is great. I mean, we're talking 9-10% walk rate, and like that 9% walk rate basically is what it is, 8-9%. You take that every single day of the week. He batted close to 300, and this is an 18-year-old in single A. Like there's a lot of players that are 20, 21 years old at that level that are just coming out of college, and he still held his own at that level. 804 OPS. He was batting like third in the lineup. 23 doubles is nice. The 4 home runs, that this is what a lot of people who aren't high on him are going to get caught up on. Single A is really hard to hit home runs in Greenville. And I mentioned that with Franklin Arias before because he only hit 6 home runs in single A in 87 games. It's just hard to do it. I mean, it's so far out, especially for like a right-handed hitter in left field, and the wind just doesn't carry very well. So your power doesn't develop as well as you think it's going to. At Greenville, he got called up, kind of got exposed a little bit. It's a very small sample size, so this is like a slump for any player. I mean, anybody could go in, they could go 5 for 49 or 5 for 43 or whatever this is, 8 for 43 if I can read these numbers right. But anybody could do that at any point in the season, so I don't take too much stock into it. Did strike out 11 times, which isn't ideal. But you look at these numbers here, and I think that next year is going to be his make or break type season as to whether he's going to become a top prospect in the sport or if he's going to be just kind of like, another maybe type prospect. Like I think of him as like he's in that Miguel Blaze crossroads, which Miguel Blaze has been a top prospect for the Red Sox in the past, like a top 5 prospect. He's now sitting in like the teens right now just because he can't put it all together. That could be him. That totally could be him. Or he could be a top 50 prospect in the sport by the end of next season because he hit 25 home runs between, single A or high A and double A. He could do that next season. And it wouldn't surprise me either way. Super high variance prospect. Could do great things next season, could do nothing. But I like prospects where they have tools that are just over the top impressive when it comes to the hit tool specifically. And so his power potential is just that, it's just the possibility of being a perennial 30 plus home run bat in the big leagues that gets you excited. And he's still so young, and last season was a nice step in the right direction. It wasn't a huge step, it was a small step. So I'm waiting for that big step. Hopefully we get it, but keep an eye on him. Watch some of the videos that I have posted about him for highlights, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. When he makes contact the right way, it's just like that ball went really, really far. All right, number 8 on our list, we have Dorian Soto. And I got to be honest, Dorian Soto, I don't know as much about as I would like to be able to communicate to you. So really, we're going to probably run through him sort of quickly. Their summary is a very intriguing prospect with high upside offensive profile, ideal frame with solid athleticism and plenty of remaining projection, strong makeup and work ethic, and is reportedly already getting better. Long-term defensive home remains to be seen, but should be able to stick in the infield and provide plenty of value at the plate. So he's an offensive force first. He played in 47 games. He hit 2 home runs, 18 RBI, 307 batting average with a 790 OPS. He was batting in the middle of the lineup, middle top of the lineup, from what I understand, in rookie ball. I like Dorian Soto a lot. I am not sure about him either. He's a switch hitter, which is cool. You gotta always love and respect a switch hitter, but he doesn't steal a lot of bases. He's not very fast, and he's not great defensively. I know that they kind of have him as like solid defensive instincts and plus arm strength, but when you're not fast and you don't have a lot of like a defensive position behind you, it kind of makes me worried. Now he's so young that like it's hard not to look at this and be like, oh, he batted 307 and get excited. But there are a lot of guys in DSL and rookie ball about like 350, 380, and it's just like, okay, those are the guys to kind of look out for. It's such a small sample size that you can't really get into it too much. And like I was saying before with Justin Gonzales, like the fact that he hit 2 home runs, that means nothing to me. Like 2 home runs this year, he could hit 15 home runs next year, and then it's like, okay, yeah, his power is starting to show. That I don't really have any concerns about, especially when they say his raw power is advanced for his age. Like I don't care about where he's at right now. But he's just so young. He's a kid. He's got nothing that I can look at right now and give a definitive answer on who he could be. And I think in a better farm system, because the Red Sox farm system's been very depleted over the past couple of weeks and months. In a better farm system, I think you look at Soto and he's probably more like a 15 level prospect as opposed to the number 8. We're really starting to get to the point where some of these guys probably shouldn't be top 10 prospects, to be perfectly honest. But the Red Sox have just traded so much of their depth, and the top guys have graduated in Campbell, Meyer, and Anthony. And we traded Teal, and there's other guys that we've sent away, Justin Gonzales. Like, it's just he's interesting, but I wouldn't put him in a category where it's like Justin Gonzales is a similar type hitter. These guys, there's a very clear line here again. Like, you have a line here, and then probably another line like right here, where it's like these are significant drop offs as we start to get further down this list. The next guy up is David Sandlin at number 9, and David Sandlin, I think he's a guy you're going to probably see major league innings from at some point this next year. He throws hard, like we're talking 99 miles an hour hard. And this last year was kind of a interesting season. His stats, if I remember correct, are not right on Sox prospects for whatever reason. So, but you look at what he did this last year, and in Portland, he had a really nice season, but then he got promoted up to a AAA, and it didn't all put together super well for him. He was walking too many people, gave up a ton of hits, and I think we still could see some legitimate innings from him this next year, depending on how everything shakes out. And he's a good prospect. It's always good to just have pitching kind of like to be able to throw at you. And they were having him out of the bullpen for a couple of reasons. One, they potentially could have used him on the major league roster last year because they were just peppered with injuries all year. And so if he came in and was like, oh, I'm crushing it as a reliever in a multi-inning role, like they could have called him up last year. It really could have happened, but he just did so poorly that it just didn't happen. I think that there's a world where David Sandlin's probably going to start again next season as a starting pitcher. Like, he's not going to just go right back into a reliever role, but he might end up back in Double-A just because it is so jam-packed in Triple-A with the starting pitching talent the Red Sox are going to have. And I just don't know if he's going to have room there. So he really could be back in Double-A starting again. And, he did pretty well in that capacity last year. And so just because if he does start in Double-A next year, it's again not because he needs to be in Double-A anymore. He does need to be in Triple-A. Just the roster crunch, and if they want him to be a starter, that's just maybe where he'll be. But Sandlin's got the potential to be, back end starter. It's again, walks to strikeouts is what I always look at, and his strikeout rates pretty okay for his minor league career, or is really good actually for his minor league career at 11. And then his walk rate is around 3. Like, those are good numbers. Like, I can get that. It's just he just kind of gives up too many hits right now, and so I'd be interested to see kind of what his arsenal looks like, and maybe they try to tweak that a little bit more because just at face value, he probably throws his fastball a little bit too much. Maybe he's falling into the Payton Tolle type role where it's just like, if we can get some other looks in there to throw people off balance, like, you're going to give up fewer hits that way. So we'll see what happens with David Sandlin, but I mean, we acquired him from John Schreiber a few years back, and Schreiber, he's like, I think this was a fair enough trade for both teams. Like, Schreiber's turned into a really solid reliever for Kansas City. Like, he was a very good reliever for us in 2022, an excellent reliever, and then he had a really nice season in 23 again, and then he's basically been doing the same thing for the past few years. He had 74 appearances, so I think the Red Sox, when they made this trade, they got a decent piece in David Sandlin, and Sandlin could promote and do some stuff. And if he ends up being a back end starter for you, you call it a win. Would I have done this trade at the time? Yeah, definitely, for sure. Kansas City's probably out on top right now, but it's trades happen. People win, people lose. You never know what happens at the time. So In the number 10 spot, so we've got Marcus Phillips, and this is another interesting pitching prospect that the Red Sox drafted last season. So he was in the what's this called? The CB round. I don't know what this is. The 33rd overall pick. So competitive balance round. So this is like the flex round between the first and second round. He's essentially a first round pick. It's a better way of looking at it. So he was the second pick that the Red Sox took. And he is a high ceiling right-hander with a wide range of outcomes, has great size and athleticism and huge velocity. Questions about delivery and strike throwing ability will lead to some to think he's best suited for a bullpen role, but has the build of a starter and will be developed there. So he's already throwing like 101 miles an hour. Like, if he's throwing that fast and the Red Sox need help out of the bullpen, like, this guy could start the season in Double-A and be in the Red Sox like bullpen, after the All-Star break. It wouldn't be that surprising, really. I think they'll know how they want to utilize him relatively quickly. And the Red Sox have so much starting pitching depth, but they don't have a ton of like bullpen depth, which is why he could come out of the bullpen if he's throwing 101. Like, they're already saying here on their summary, like, that he could be better out of the bullpen. This guy's throwing 101 as like a starting pitcher. This guy's gonna be throwing like 103 like out of the bullpen, and that's the type of like reliever where you look at it and it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, we're talking close to Mason Miller territory, and I mean, it's hard to say no to that when you can get a guy who's pitching in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is just one of the better relievers in baseball, and that's plausible. But I guess the decision needs to be made where it's like, if he can be one of the better relievers in baseball, or he can be a good starting pitcher, what do you want to do? And you know, he could be neither. I mean, he hasn't even pitched an inning, a pitch in the minor leagues so far. So like, this is so far ahead of ourselves already. But he's got good strikeout rates in college, walk rates a little bit higher than I want it to be, but like, this is very nice progression. I mean, he walked a ton of batters in his first season before he transferred to Tennessee, and then his first year in Tennessee, I mean, 20 innings. Like to go from a guy that pitched 20 innings to 83 innings and then being drafted in the first round, like, there was significant increases in talent level year over year between what Marcus Phillips can do. And the Red Sox are so focused on what they see now, as to like the consistency over time. And I think that served them well for developing pitching prospects so far. They haven't really shown that they can develop a right-handed pitcher yet. So I'd be interested to see what happens with Marcus Phillips and Kyson Witherspoon. But you look at Phillips and Witherspoon at number 4 and number 10, and they're not as far off from pitchers as you might think. Like, there's a real world where Marcus Phillips is a better pitcher than Kyson Witherspoon. Like, it's totally possible. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think Kyson Witherspoon's just got a better arsenal behind him, and Marcus Phillips has the velocity, which is why we're looking at him as maybe a reliever. But overall, like, there's a chance where like Marcus Phillips, he could be at the top 3 or 4 prospect mid-season pretty quickly if he just comes in and is like, oh wow, this is Marcus Phillips. Like, he's going to be a really good starting pitcher, because we just don't know. We just don't know. So, that's the top 10 prospects. Yeah, we got through that. This video was almost shorter than I thought it was going to be. So for those of you who've been sitting here for, I don't know, 40 or 50 minutes, or how long this thing turned out to be, it could have been longer. And if you want it to be longer, like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts. Tell me what you're thinking about this. And if you want me to do more, I will do more. I will do more of these type of things. And as we head into the season, I mean, we've got Anthony Ianson, Godbout, Mikey Romero, Tyler Uberstein. I love Tyler Uberstein. So high on this guy. I love talking about these type of prospects as well, and I will if you want me to. I totally will. But a lot of pitching in the top 15, 16 prospects here. So we'll see what the Red Sox do to kind of rebuild their hitters as they head into the next draft, and some of the moves that I'm sure will be upcoming. So thanks for sticking it out to the end. If you enjoy this content, do the stuff that I said before. If not, I'll see you some other time, I guess. But thanks for clicking into this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.